Hey everyone, it's Anna Runyon here, and today we are talking about how important it is to understand yourself better when it comes to determining what your ideal career fit is or when starting your business. You guys know I'm a huge fan of really some deep diving into self-reflection and understanding yourself first, your personality, your strengths. So I'm very, very excited today to introduce you to Becky Hammond. Becky is a certified Gallup Strengths coach, and she's the founder of Isago. And she consults for Fortune 500 companies and even international companies. I'm excited because I know her very personally. She is my mastermind partner, and I'm really, really excited for you guys to get to know her today as well. So welcome, Becky. Thanks for being here.
Thanks. This is so much fun. I'm glad that we could make this happen.
I know, me too. So share with us a little bit more about what we're going to be talking about here today. So we're talking about Strengths Quest. Why is this important and what is this?
Yeah. Yeah. So the Strengths Finder assessment is actually not, you said Strengths Quest and their Strengths Finder, and now they're rebranding to Clifton Strengths. So you'll find a variety of these names out there. And as long as they come from Gallup, that it is essentially the same assessment. And, but what we're talking about is way more than an assessment. It's a whole paradigm shift as to how we think about ourselves, how we think about the people that are around us. It started in the field of positive psychology. So there's a man named Donald Clifton who was studying psychology and realized that we spend a lot of time trying to figure out what's wrong with people. What if instead we flipped the question on its head and we said, what if we study what's right with people? Mm-hmm. And that question spurred the rest of his research for the rest of his life. And what he brought to light is something that you probably already sense and know personally, which is we spend most of our time trying to be well-rounded. The ethos of our society is very heavily forces us and pushes us towards saying the most successful people are those that are well-rounded. And I like to think of it like a circle. I brought my little circle prop here. So this, I like to think of it like a circle, like our world is trying to tell us to be well-rounded. And that if we can get to this perfect circle, that Renaissance man, that Renaissance woman, then we're going to be the most successful. That's where we're going to find our most of our success. But what I have discovered over the last decade and what the last 50 years of research out of this field of positive psychology is saying is that we're not most successful when we're this circle, but rather we're most successful when we come out shaping more like a star, where we are not necessarily, we're not well-rounded, but rather we realize that we have unique, sharp points about us, our strengths, our talents, the way that we're naturally wired. And that as we concentrate on these strengths and we use them in our daily lives and we think about how we can sharpen and use the way we're naturally wired, then that's going to be how we're most successful, how we're going to have most energy for what we do, how we're going to love our work, how we're going to love our life, and how we're ultimately also going to be less frustrated with the people that are around us. And so it's a paradigm shift. So it's not just an assessment where you kind of get your results and it's fun and you learn more about yourself, but rather really thinking about how do I move from thinking about myself and my world as a circle to really thinking about it as a star, to have a paradigm shift that says, this is not what we're going for. And in fact, when we try to go force round, we start working on these weak points, right? So we start to say, okay, if I can just get better in this one area, if I can just get a little bit better, okay, yeah, yep, now I think I'm doing better. And then they say, okay, I'm going to work on this other thing. Maybe you've even done it in your 90-day review or something like that, where they say, okay, get better at this. So you do, and you work on it, and you're miserable because when you're working on your weaknesses, you're miserable. And then you step back and you're like, okay, I must be closer to looking like a circle. And really all you've done is look like some cattywampus star, right? Because now you also haven't been concentrating on your strengths. So these things get duller as you're trying to work on your weaknesses because you're fixating in a spot that's not going to ultimately make you most successful. Whereas when you fixate on the points, the whole star gets bigger and you become more successful.
I wish I knew this earlier. Like,
yeah,
I'm just struggling in corporate, trying to fit into that box and that circle that they wanted me to be in. And it's just like, now I know it, knowing what I know now, it's like, I'm so glad we're doing this and sharing this with other people, because it's just something I don't think is taught that much and is out there as much as it should be. So thank you for doing what you do.
Yeah, of course. I'm excited. I love it. It changed my life on multiple levels, and I'm excited to be able to get to share it with your crew.
Yeah, definitely. So what we're doing today, so I have taken this strengths assessment and reviewed it again this morning. So I am like fresh on this stuff. And tell me what we're going to do today. We're going to deep dive into my strengths, and you tell me what we're doing.
Yeah. Well, I think we should just look at this like a little mini coaching session where you and I talk back and forth about your top 5 strengths and kind of how you've seen them, specifically in your work life, right? So specifically, how you've seen them show up in the past and the present and the future, as you considered changing careers, as you considered going out on your own, and then how it energizes you now, and some of the things that you get stopped up about, and then kind of what that next step in the future looks like based on how your strengths are being used now.
Exactly. Yeah. And these are all the same sort of questions you guys should be asking yourselves too, as you take this same strengths assessment. We highly recommend taking this. And so as you're listening to Becky ask me these questions, like, this is a great idea to be writing them down and to start be thinking them yourselves as well.
Yep. You can walk through this same process that we're going through and really start to discover why you're frustrated, where you are, and what might be a good fit as you're moving forward. So that's what we'll focus on.
Awesome. Let's go.
All right. Ready?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think just in general, when you read through your report, what was your initial impression kind of as you read through everything?
So my initial impression was, I wish I would have taken this earlier, because I think a lot of things jumped out as far as me becoming an entrepreneur and doing my own thing. Like the things that jumped out were like, I don't need a manager to create goals for me or to motivate me. Like I'm very focused and goal oriented. And so, it just like totally made me like, sometimes my managers didn't care about my goals. They would skip my like quarterly review meetings. And I was like, why don't you care? I just got so frustrated because like goals were so important to me and still are. So I think if I would have taken this earlier to know more about myself, instead of trying to fit in, my corporate organization, I think it would have been interesting.
Yeah. Or even, it's kind of an interesting thought, but even if you understood the root of your frustration and you were able to articulate that to your managers in a different way, like let's say you didn't want to take the plunge to totally get out, but you just wanted something that was more satisfying. You realize like, oh, we could have this conversation about how important goals are to me and how motivating that is just to have a conversation about it. And then, who knows?
Oh yeah. It would have been totally different if I came to it from like, oh, here's like this assessment, or here's who I am on paper, and if I think this is so important to have in a corporation as a manager, just so you know what your employees are looking for as well.
Yeah. So why don't you share with us what your top 5 strengths are? Okay. So out of 34 talent themes that the Clifton StrengthsFinder assessment gives, when you take the assessment, you're given your top 5. So Anna has her top 5. So tell us what your top 5 are.
I do. So number 1 is focus. Number 2 is achiever. Number 3 is maximizer. Number 4 is relator. And number 5 is input. Now you guys know me really well. I'm like,
you're showing you're turning all your cards face up right now.
It's good though.
It is. Okay. So as you're reading through, was there one that particularly stuck out to you that resonated with you the most, maybe?
I think, the focus one, I think really stuck out because I was just telling a friend this last night. I was really bad returning her text messages when she wanted to get to go out to dinner with us. And it was because I was focused on something in my business. Like I have to like block out that time and only focus on one thing. And it's really hard. Like when like my husband John's asking questions while I'm like concentrating on a blog post. So that it's more like, oh, this is me. Like I'm reading me. This is me. So I think that stuck out most. And then the achiever, that every day starts at 0 for me. And I gotta get something done for the day. I think that one was like big too, because it's true. But that can be negative in my like personal life too, because it even said like on vacations and you know, when you have the day off, you still feel like you need to get something done. So in a way, I don't know if that's like that great.
Yep. Each one of these things have volume dials, you know, you think of them like 5 different volume dials in front of us, and we're sharpening our star when we figure out what volume we need to be having it at any certain time. I can certainly relate. I'm a fellow achiever, and there are, I've had to learn how to add relational type things to my list, and so that it benefits other people around as well.
Well, that's great, because the action said to get together, I think, with other achievers too. So that's why you make a great team.
No wonder, right? Oh, fun. Okay, well, in like 3 to 5 minutes, tell us, like, give me a rundown of what your top 5 strengths are. Like if you were going to explain them to somebody, and maybe that would be, I know you went through your report ahead of time, and this is definitely something that I recommend that everybody do, is go through your report and highlight the things that really resonate with you, that say, this is me. Because that's when you're going to start to be able to put it into your own language. So even if you're kind of reading some of those highlights, tell us who you are through your top 5, through some of those things that you highlighted in your own words.
So I'm a very focused woman who likes to, I liked how it said excellence, not average. I strive for excellence, although still trying not to be perfect as well. So I guess I'm still struggling with that one. But so I think I'm very goal-oriented and action-oriented and purposeful. Like, I think that's a big one too. Like, yeah, I like to set goals, but the goals have a bigger purpose. There's like a long-term vision for them. So I don't think that necessarily came out as much on the report, but I think there's like a why, I think. So yeah, these are my 5 strengths, but there's a long-term purpose, I guess. There's like a bigger reason, but I don't know. I think I would call them more like gifts too, that have helped me create a business that allows me to use these strengths to help other people too, to use like the relator. I love building communities online. I love interacting with people online and close people that I know. So it really excites me when like people join our membership sites, and then I get to know them in our private Facebook groups on like a more personal level. And then obviously when we meet in person too. So it's kind of like, that's like my own like fun times. It's like having a friend over for dinner, you know, is creating those communities online. And I'm an introvert as well. So I guess that makes sense too, that like, I like those close contacts with people. I like to get to know people on a closer level. But of course I'll meet new people too, but I mean, it's kind of like us, like we met, but like, it's way better when there's like that closeness than in the beginning. Like I guess I strive for that. It says it right.
Yeah.
You know, like having, like we had friends over for dinner last night who I've been friends with for like almost 10 years. Like those are the people that like, that we cling to, you know, is that we still like stay in touch with, like that I value.
Yeah. Well, and you and your husband are both relators. So you both have that strength. So that is it's a natural thing for you guys to both like forge deep, meaningful relationships and hold on to them and keep them going.
Yeah. Sure. That's important for sure. And then I thought the input was really interesting too, because I don't necessarily collect, like the results say like collect
things,
butterflies or something. Like I'm not a collector, but how I realized I collect like knowledge and inspiration from the blog. I mean, we're going on almost 7 years of collecting information on a website, so collecting information and knowledge and like teaching other people, and now like teaching my daughter too. Like I love that kind of stuff. And so it's different than like, so I think it's important for you guys to listening to us too. Like when you're reading it, it doesn't have to be exactly probably what they say, but like look in your life, like, okay, how am I collecting things in other ways? Or, like what does that mean in your life?
Yeah. The input definition, actually the Gallup version of the input description is a description that I particularly don't think fits. I think maybe it fit when they created it 15 years ago, and as they've been updating their algorithms and stuff, I think it still captures what people collect, but people aren't collecting physical things as much anymore. It's more information. Like I like to think of the input strength as kind of like the Wikipedia strength. It's like, you ask somebody with input. Another good friend of mine has input, and it's like, if I don't know how to find a recipe or how to spell something, I just ask her and she pretty much knows, because she's collecting, like constantly collecting kind of sticky notes of information. And then the value, like you've shown in that one, is that you collect all this, not just to keep it, but to give it out to other people. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think, and you hit on a couple things there where, that I think is important for everybody who's listening as well to know, is like, this is Anna's way of doing this.
Yes.
But the awesome thing about StrengthsFinder is that it's not prescriptive in saying like, okay, you get these top 5 strengths, therefore your career should be XYZ, or you should, go into ABC, but rather like, as it aligns with your passion and your skills and your knowledge, like this is the how. This is how you're going to go about doing things. So, there's thousands of successful entrepreneurs out there. They don't necessarily all have the same strengths. And in fact, they have vastly, wildly different strengths. And so like the way that Anna has shared information on her site, or Anna, the way that you've shared information on your site, is very different than like other people. They would call it like a strategy, right? Like it's their strategy of sharing information. But yours is super robust because you're excited about sharing information. But, somebody else, their site might not look exactly like that because they have a different set of how they get to that same point of success.
Yeah. It's really just pursuing if you can figure out what these strengths are, I think and then pursuing them and learning more about them. And what would you say, like getting more education on them or practicing them more probably?
Yeah, it's more about practicing. It's like looking at your past, your present, and kind of where you want to be in the future and saying, okay, do I see this strength showing up strongly? How could I use it more? And it really has a lot to do with our energy. And that's how you'll know if you're using your strengths or not, is like, these are the things that energize you. And you could hear it in your voice, right? Like you're talking about goals and you're just like, oh my gosh, it's exciting goals.
My goals are up on the wall.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly. But somebody else, let's say with adaptability strengths, they would sometimes goals feel constrictive to people with adaptability strength, because their talent is really being able to go with the flow and go through every open door or any open door that is offered to them. And they build their success in that way. And so I've talked to a lot of people who have adaptability that feel like, oh man, like we feel, frustrated by our world, who is constantly telling us to go, like to set our goals.
Yeah.
But it feels futile to them when they know that things constantly change, But then of course you talk to somebody like you as focused, you're like, well, yeah, I know it changes, but you have to have a goal, right? So it's a different, it's a different path of getting there, right?
Yeah. I think it's so important to bring up too, because we have all kinds of different women in, our different membership sites, reading the blog. And like, I think this is really important. Like, yes, I'm like set how I've done it, or like, here's some my advice, but no, you guys aren't like me too. So I love that each of you guys has your unique gifts and strengths, and you can support other women too. And that's kind of like our whole mission at Classy Career Girl too, is like women helping women. And so it gives you that strength where someone else, like I am probably lacking in a lot of your guys' strengths and you can help me out, you know?
Yes.
So that's important, you know? Like I asked
Yeah.
my friend last night at dinner, like, help me with organizing my closet, you know, like that is not a strength of mine, you know? So like that kind of stuff is like figuring out what other people are strong too. Like, would you recommend that to help, kind of help you?
Oh yeah. I mean, this is, you know, I think it's really important to go deep in yourself to really understand who you are. But when you've done that, the next amazing step is that others awareness. And you start to be able to understand, like, if this is my star and this is your star, like where our stars can fit together so that we do as a team become more well-rounded. Like all of our little stars will fit inside this circle together to make a well-rounded team. And it takes, I mean, I've worked with a lot of managers, a lot of people who are thinking about, you know, how they do what they do every day. And it's hard because it takes admitting that you're not great at certain things. Like for me, it took admitting, like, I don't come up with ideas spontaneously. Like that's just not a thing that we do. But it's like in my space, I feel like I have to be able to come up with ideas. It's like, well, okay, I do come up with ideas and using the knowledge that I've gained in all these different ways that I'm wired, but like getting together with somebody else and partnering, that's where the success is really going to come for us, where we can both be sharp and be excited about what we're doing, and both be energized by what we're doing together.
Awesome. Like we're doing now.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, let me ask you a little bit about kind of where you came from in your work life and how you have seen these strengths. Let's start with the positive, because that's what we're in, positive psychology. Where do you think your strengths had helped you in the past? And it doesn't have to be before Classy Career Girl. It could be during. But where do you think they've helped you in the past in your work life? Where have you really seen them show up and help you get to some specific success?
I think I remember one time where I really wanted a promotion and my boss said I wasn't ready. And I knew I was like, he just didn't know all the stuff that I was doing. And so I was so focused that weekend. I went home and I created like a whole presentation on why I should be promoted. I got like social proof. I got other people like saying all the things that I was doing. And I went back on Monday and I like presented it and like shared that with him, you know, and I ended up getting the promotion. So I know that's one thing that I just was thinking of, just like how, he didn't understand my goals. Clearly I wanted to get promoted and, you know, we weren't on the same page. Right. So I didn't need a manager to motivate myself, right. To do a great job, to support our client. This was back in my corporate career. So
where do you think some of, like, as you're talking, some of your strengths kind of like light bulb in my head? Do you see where your strengths, even just in that one very specific example, which is great, how do you think your strengths played into that experience? Like, do you think relator or input or maximizer? Like,
I think for sure, obviously the achiever, like I was going to make that happen. You know, like there was like that drive. Yeah, right. There was just a drive. This was before I had kids. Like this was like my life. I think this is before the blog too. This is all I had. So this was like, that was what was driving me. I think relater, like I was always, everyone trusted me at work. Like there was always kind of like I always got stuff done. They could trust me. Like if they needed something, I could get it done. And I was friends with most of the people that I worked with. I wouldn't say this was interesting too, because I think this was something that was hard about my work environment is I didn't really, some of my friends I wanted to be friends with at work, but there were just some people that didn't have my same, we didn't jive. We didn't have, they didn't care about achieving. They just were, it was a 9 to 5 and they didn't really care. They just sat in their seats and just were there, you know, and like that just frustrated me. So I didn't want to pursue like those like friendships, I guess.
Yeah.
So I think that was hard because I felt like I should be friends with them, but like I just couldn't relate to their lack of the achievement that they wanted in their career. I don't think, I think the blog helped me with the input strength. I think before blogging, I wasn't teaching, I wasn't doing much. I think that was kind of like a missing, it was always like a creative side that I was never really letting out.
Right.
So I think that was something I was like holding up, like, you know, but now I know, like, I like writing, I like teaching, I like creating stuff.
Right. I think also so each one of these strengths comes with a specific need, like, meaning it's going to help you understand why you're frustrated and things. Like if your environment doesn't meet the needs that your strengths have, then you're going to start being frustrated. And one of the things that I hear as you're talking about even your manager and when you're asking for promotion is so Maximizer goes after excellence, and you take pride in the excellence of what you create and what you produce and how you act. And so when he says you're not ready, in your mind, it can say like, what? Like I've been giving you my best. Like and my best is dang good. So like there's like a, you know, a reaction to that because you're wired to seek excellence and you know that you were giving excellence. And so it was kind of almost like the motivation underneath that weekend that you spent, right? Like, it's like, I'm going to show him how good I am. Right. Like, and so your focus achiever, like, were driving the bus, they were like getting you to that place, but that Maximizer was that kind of influencing factor in your life that was like, why does this bother me? Because I need I need an environment where excellence is honored. Right. And he was violating that.
Well, it's funny because I thought about a time where one of my other leads told me that I didn't have to be perfect. And like that to me, you know, it even says the Maximizer is excellence, not average. And so having someone say like, just don't be so perfect. Like, don't try so hard. Like, it's not that big a deal. It's just work. That's just like shocking to me. Like that's so important to me to give excellence and everything. So it was just, it was a mismatch in me and my team and then the work environment and what I was doing.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about like how you balance that desire for excellence kind of towards perfection with now kind of even just with more self-awareness and more exploration and teaching people about like, it doesn't have to be perfect, right? So like you've said the same things, like it doesn't have to be perfect, but yet the core of who you are really feels like, it kind of needs to be perfect, right? How have you dealt with that?
I think learning how to delegate that kind of stuff has forced me to learn and figure that out because, you know, when you teach it and then you delegate it to someone else, it's not going to be perfect right away. Like, and so I think over the last year, I have done a lot of that of just like, you know, hiring interns and community manager and like, you know, all these people. And so it's like a forced, you got to figure that out. You know, it's like, you got to let go of like that perfection of someone not doing it. And then sometimes like the more you train them, then they do it even better than you could have done, you know? And so I think letting that go, obviously working with my husband I had to let go a lot of stuff then too, when he joined us 2 years ago. So I think more than anything, that has actually grown me. Like, even though it's letting go, like I still have grown, I think, as a leader, to not have to be perfect. And it's great, but actually everything is going even better because of the team all working together. Like now, like, you know, there is great customer service and people are getting what they need and like way better than I was doing it myself. Like that's not, you know, responding to people like right away and making sure they're taken care of. Like, I'd love to do that, but that's where my focus came into play too, is like, it was really hard to grow a business trying to be focused on everything. at once.
It's impossible, right?
It's
like that's
really
that's not the definition of focus is
no.
right. It's
So
fairly singular, especially when you lead with that strength. Like it's a fairly singular.
yeah.
And
Yeah. But this makes so much sense. Like why, like it, when one person is frustrated with some little like freebie I'm offering online and they're just like, this is not good. And I'm like, what? You put so much work into that. Like, it's just like, which is why I don't see those things anymore, John. Make sure I don't do that because it like ruins my day,
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a good partnership, right? Like, you're striving for excellence, and not every little comment is going to align with where you see yourself. And you don't want to create a weekend presentation for everybody who disagrees with something, right? Like your maximizer is going to thrive. And what I also see, which is really cool in your maturity and your development, is like it's not just the maximizing isn't about what you and your work product, but it's about your team and what your team does and how you're leading them, and so I think it's every one of these strengths has a raw side and a mature side. And so sometimes you will find that like we are living in the raw state. And like for me, for example, that has been perfectionism as well. Like when I live in the raw state of it, it's perfectionism for the sake of being perfect. But when I am more, when I'm using it more maturely, and just as you described, like when you're using your maximizer maturely, you're helping other people get to a place of excellence to help, kind of put your, drive along your why to help other people to live more excellent, right? So your maximizer is the thing that's influencing everything. And you've enabled it by living in it more maturely to not be about just individual perfectionism, rather about excellence and moving everything forward. So yeah, there's a lot of different elements to that.
Yeah. Well, and they all like interconnect too, which is great. I mean, that's how we're made, right? Like everyone's different. And
yes. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's like one of my favorite things about this assessment is that the chance of you getting the top 5 strengths in the same order as somebody else is 1 in 33.3 million. Wow. Right. So this is different than some of the other assessments that are out there that are also good at helping us kind of explore. This is something that's extremely unique to you. So even though you have achiever and I have achiever, you have relator, John has relator, like they're going to play out drastically differently depending on kind of the marriage of the strengths together and how they overlay. So yeah, it really gets at your uniqueness for sure. As I was thinking about this, I really wanted you to share with all of us and share with me, like, is there a day recently, so we're kind of bringing it back to now into present tense, is there a day recently that you have felt like you were firing on all cylinders? And then just kind of describe that to us and what that day was like.
Yeah. I would say the days where I batched an entire day of training.
Okay.
So there was a day where John took Mila for the whole day. I had a whole day and I was going to create all the content, which might sound overwhelming to a lot of people, but for me, like I created in one day all of our content for our corporate rescue plan membership site for January through March. I probably created like 6 videos, 6 worksheets, and coming up with all the ideas of what was going to be there too. But yeah, it was exciting to like get it all done and put it together. And I was in a groove. That was,
and you were working by yourself in that
by myself.
Session.
Yeah. So okay. Home alone, working by myself, doing all the recordings, and just giving, I mean, I think service, I don't know where like service and like helping others, I guess fits in there, but like, yeah, it's like anytime I can like transfer my knowledge to other people, like I feel better. And so that's why like every day I need to do some sort of like a Facebook Live or like some sort of little blog post or even like a social media post, giving something to someone else. Like I feel like there's my achiever. Like I feel like it did something for the day. Right. I helped someone. So I guess that's like the big, and that's where I think the purpose is, yeah, I have these goals, but it's all leading to that, like giving and helping other people.
Yeah. I mean, I would say in your top 5, the thing that points to it the most is your input. Like a mature
Yeah.
use of input is like, I'm gathering, not just to gather, but to give. And, you know, the reason you can come up with 6 modules of videos and worksheets in one day is because you already have it in your head. It's not like you had to like go out and find it, right?
No.
It's like you've been collecting this information over time,
Oh, yeah.
and that's exciting to you to collect it, and very, very exciting and energizing for you to give it to other people.
That's true.
Yeah. So, I mean, you just like, you hear your strengths just in that one, it's just in that one day. And the reason I bring up this example of energizing day is because, you know, if you are in a job that you feel stuck in, or that you feel very frustrated by, like thinking about the last day that you did something that was super energizing is going to help you figure out what are the pieces that I need going forward. And so maybe it was in your job. It's like, oh my gosh, yeah, there was this one day in the last 30 days that I thought was awesome. And think through the individual elements of it and how your strengths played into that, because then you'll be able to help create a new story for yourselves using your strengths to get there. So like, for example, for Anna's, like your day, what you had, I mean, you said, what did you say? It was so exciting to get it done, right? Like get it done is like a huge key phrase in that focus and the achievement, right? Like, so you had one day, you had a finite amount of time. You knew that by the end of the day, you wanted to get 6 things done, right? So that's your focus. I have this goal. It's very much like funnel vision from that point on. There was nothing else that was going to come into your way. Right. I bet you hardly ate that day, right?
I don't remember eating.
Yeah, see? So, and then achiever, right? That achiever is like, you just want to check box. I'm sure that there was a list somewhere that you said, okay, I need to get these things done. And you were checking them off as you went along, getting them done. That's energizing. Excellence, right? Like you're bringing, a maximizer brings excellence.
It was great training too. Like it was like one of the best, some of the best trainings I've ever done too. So I think that excited me too, because there's excellence in there. Yeah, the excellence and the input, right? The excellence and the maximizer and the input together are saying, this is all the information that I've collected. I'm so excited to give this back to people. All in one day. So if you can kind of take apart your energizing day like that, then you start to say, okay, well, how can I was so energized when I used this focus strength. How can I put more of that in my life? I was so energized when I used this input strength. Well, how can I put more of that in my life and my work and the job, the next future role that I'm going to be choosing? So I also, it's kind of interesting how the relator strength plays in there. I love what you said about like, you love it when people kind of work their way closer to you, right? Like there's a big group and you said something like, well, it's not that I don't like you, right? It is true. It's not that we all don't have bits and pieces of this, but what is it that really energizes us? And energizing for you as a relator, the thing that energizes you as you get closer and closer to somebody, that's more energizing than when they're far apart. Like you still love all those people that are, you know, farther apart, but as they get closer and closer, they get to know you better. You get to know them better. And I think that your videos that you're creating that day were part of that, like letting them in even a little bit more to get to know you, about what you're passionate about, what you are passionate about them learning, and how you're passionate about them growing. So I think that can love it. And they're getting like I see them getting closer to the achievement too. So maybe that's a maximizer there. Like they're moving closer to their goals too, which is exciting for me.
Yeah, totally. Okay. So just kind of as we're wrapping up here in the next, I think, little bit, but I really want to think through what are some things that get in your way. So these strengths these talents do operate as strengths, but sometimes, as you've mentioned even a little bit already, when we've used them in overdrive or maybe not enough, then they start to get in our way. And I think so that's another important step as you're thinking about, you know, what's frustrating you and what's not. It's like, what are the things that are getting in your way that are up to you, that aren't really about your environment, but they're about how you're operating. So do you see anything in what you're doing right now, or, you know, in the recent past, where you feel like some of these things that are really good things about you have also gotten in your way?
Yeah, I mean, I think for sure the focus, because sometimes I can get so focused I forget about the team. So we've had to set up like to discuss times in the calendar. So it's like that I can't focus that time, you know?
Right.
Um,
Or is it you can't focus, or is it you're switching your focus, you know?
yeah, switching your focus, but it's like 25 different things. So it's like an hour of like boom,
Oh, I see
boom,
what you're
boom,
saying. Yeah.
boom, like knocking, like you need to respond to this. Da, da, da. Like I
Yeah.
hate that stuff. Like, um, so I think that is where it kind of got in the way. It's hard for me to like stop and focus on, I guess that kind of stuff, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stuff that's not getting here's what it is. It's not getting me to my goal.
Yeah.
It's like administrative stuff that I feel like is almost a waste of time, even though it's not.
Yeah.
Um,
It could create a stumbling block later if it's not addressed,
oh,
right?
exactly. Yeah, huge. Like you don't want that stuff to pile up. You need that's part of like running a business or even doing your job is doing the stuff that you kind of sometimes don't really like too. So
Right. Right. Yeah. And I think you're bringing up a good point. Your strengths finder results aren't really an excuse not to do things just because they aren't your strengths, right? It's again, how you're going to get about doing them. And for you, you realize like, okay, I can't just answer these 25 things randomly throughout the day. I have to have 1 hour of time that even though I don't really love that 1 hour of time and all the administrative things, at least I'm getting it done in that 1 hour and I can go back to my focus things again. Right.
Yeah. I think also as a teacher, a trainer with Achiever, I've had to learn not to give so much training and overwhelm. So
input, like reining back that, like,
yeah. And I guess it's the input too, because I think my beginning trainings were it was like too much. So really just giving them like that first baby step, like something doable that they can get results on in the beginning. So learning how to teach different like that, learning how to teach so it's not overwhelming, I guess, because there's just a ton in my brain.
Yeah, exactly. It's like just letting like little beep
I know.
come out instead of all together. But then you know you'll be around for a long time, so you'll be able to share all.
Oh, I got lots more. Don't you guys worry.
Well, we trust you for that one, that's for sure.
Yeah. And then I think the perfection with the maximizer, but we've already definitely talked about that too. I think I realized though, and back to the perfection too, is I realized I couldn't achieve my goals if I stayed in the perfection too. So I think maybe the Achiever helped me get out of the perfection because I knew I just had to like achieve something that day. It might not be perfect, but then the next day I could achieve something else and like get closer to that excellence. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's like, when do you choose to turn one up and turn one down? Like, I mean, I think you've said to me in our mastermind group before, it's like, sometimes it's just about getting it. I mean, and I think in some of your reports that your monthly update reports, you've said like, this month was just about getting it done. And then this next month is about, you know, finessing it and changing it so that it's more exactly what you want it to be, but you got it done. Right. Yes. So it's like you turn Achiever up 1 month and maybe Maximizer down a little bit, and then vice versa the other month, so that you could focus in on making it more excellent through your Maximizer.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
And your focus allows you to do that really well. It's like, okay, like, I'm just gonna get it done, and then the next month I'm just gonna focus on the finesse. So
yeah. And I think also the one other thing was sometimes I set too many goals for myself, and then I can't reach them all. So I think learning. And I know I'm speaking to myself right here because I have like 4 more days left of the month, and I know I'm not going to hit my goals, and I'm kind of bummed about that. So I think that's where, you know, that could be a bad thing too, is not being realistic in the goals that I'm setting.
Yeah. And that's a hard thing to learn, but you only learn through experience on that one. What happened? What happened when John joined your group a couple of years ago when you joined your team? Was there any kind of change in how you felt about your daily work?
Yeah, I mean, in one sense, it helped because we didn't have childcare at that point. So I was I had no focus because I was trying to be a mom and grow my business. And it was chaotic because there was no focus at all. So in one aspect, it helped when he joined because he helped us with part of the childcare too. So I could have more time to focus. So that was like huge and positive. But then, yeah, I think it's been 2 years now, and I think we're finally getting it, like figuring out, like you said before, we both have opposite strengths, which is great.
Yeah.
But it's also figuring that out too. Like he can't sit here and focus for hours and hours like I can.
8 hours, right? Yeah.
8 hours. And so I think he had to realize, like, okay, it's okay if I take a break. Like, it's not like I can't work like her, And so figuring out how you work the best. And then I think because for me, it was eye-opening, because it was actually eye-opening when we got married, because I wanted to set goals on when we would, like, financial goals and stuff.
You're like, what?
Goals? Like, I didn't understand that other people don't set goals and don't have goals. And so obviously we did set some goals because we made some big changes in our life because of those goals. And so talking through that, I mean, we were married 7 years before we went into business together. So I think that was like our practice, So we knew kind of like, I knew kind of where those things, like I couldn't push too much on like goals and stuff, Like, there had to be, I couldn't give him the goals that I give myself, which require a lot of focus every day. It's not like, today we're going to do this. He'd be like, today. So I think just the clear boundaries, and obviously there's been changes in like our systems we've used. And so now he's like the expert in things that I have no idea what he's doing. And so, but starting, I had to teach him how to do the things I was doing.
Yeah.
So
how did it change anything that you now had a best friend at work? Like, you were working totally on your own, but for like the groups of communities of people that you met and you made, did it help that or how did it change things that you now had a really close person that you were working with every day?
Oh, it made it way more fun. I mean, that's for sure. It made it more of like, I mean, we could go to coffee shops, we could travel. We went on like a 6-month road trip and worked together too. So it just made it like way more like a team.
Yeah.
And I think it allowed me to like let my personality out a lot more. So like a lot of the times, first when I was doing Facebook Lives, like I needed him in the room because he would like relax me, and like we could like joke back and forth. And I think even just these last like 4 months in my business, like the real me has come out a lot more, just because I'm asking him to be around me more in our trainings, and because it's that I'm me when I'm around him. And so I think that's allowed other people to get to know me more too.
Yeah. Yeah. And the reason I start exploring this is because that relator strength, like a lot of the examples that you've given have been very focused on the achiever and the focus, the maximizer and the input, right? But then there's that fourth relator strength where I think that I would say that the success of your business over the last couple of years is not just because now you're working with your husband, which is super amazing, but because there's a need that's been met in you in a different way than was met for the 5 years before that. Because people who have relator, and especially when it's paired with all these other high achieving strengths, like they will work best when they're working best side by side with somebody else. And when they have the opportunity for deep, transparent, meaningful connections. And so now you're working with the person who you're most transparent with in your entire life. And it's just kind of because that need is met, like your deeper psychological, emotional needs are met, like you're going to be free to, be more successful and do some of the things that you're talking about.
Everything has changed since he came on. I mean, it's a completely different business. It's grown like crazy. So yeah.
So, I mean, part of it is him. Props to John.
Yeah.
Is the fact that now you can be more, you're living out more. Like I
get to do more of this stuff.
Like you're sharp, you're later was maybe like a little bit dull, right? Like it was
Yeah.
like a little bit, and now because you get to work side by side with somebody, you have this sharper point now than you did 2 years ago.
Oh yeah.
And so I think that's part of what following your strengths to your best career fit is about, is like, what are some of the things that are missing? When I tell you my examples of all the things that are energizing, where are the holes? Where are we hearing that we're not actually living out of one of these strengths as well as we would want to, or as much as we could? And then what is that future role that either that you already have your eye on, like you're like, that's, I think, what I want. What about that role meets those needs differently of your strengths and helps you use your strengths more specifically? And then if you don't have your eye on a future role already, thinking through your most energizing days and what the elements of that were. And as you're doing your research, you'll be able to start saying like, okay, yeah, like I think that would hit that need, that would fit that need. That would help me use that strength every day.
I love that.
Yeah. Anything else you want to share about your strengths with us, or any other places you want to make sure that we emphasize or hit?
I think just more than anything, it really is figuring out how you can focus on them in your work. And then even when you're bringing it back to, I think, where this is going to be like in the beginning of launching your dream career, launching your dream business, like it's just a really good thing to like just write these down. So to be honest, I took this a long time ago and I didn't really do much with it until fabulous Becky came into my life. And so, I wish I would have kept it a little bit more front and center. Fortunately, I think I have started, things have been crazy busy, but in the changes we've made, I have gone towards these strengths more and more. Maybe I did know this and I just kept, I did take a lot of assessment. I am all about self-reflection. So maybe internally I knew what these were, and I just kept like trying to make the decisions in my life that enforce those things that I really like make me happy and fulfilled. Yeah. And so I think, in the next few years, when you're listening to this, after you take this, like just make sure that you're like going back to this and you're remembering it. And when you have big decisions, when you have interviews, when you have to make decisions on which life path, like, should I move? Should I take this job? Should I make the leap and not go back to my day job, after maternity leave? Like, all this stuff, I think just remembering, what your strengths are and making sure that they fit when you're applying to certain jobs, when you're creating your business model and your business plan. There's a lot of different ways you can run a business. I think that, that's one thing that hasn't come up too. For me, I realized, it's really draining working like individually, one-on-one, doing a lot of that. And so changing it so I can teach to 100 people at once, like that's like way more energizing for me. So even in your business, as you're growing, and we're both growing our businesses, like we're changing things all the time, and you have to be like kind of changing and delegating. And so same thing, like keeping those front and center so like what changes you can make and how you can improve things to actually make your business something you love doing, not a business that's just kind of like more work,
Yeah, totally. I love that point. It's actually in the 9 steps that I think are very effective in kind of moving towards life change through your strengths. That's the very first one, which is just, you have to remember your strengths. It's like, It's like reading. It's like, I'm teaching my daughter to read right now. And it's like, she's never going to be able to read well if she keeps getting, K and F mixed up from each other. If she can't recall it quickly off the top of her tongue, if you can't say, oh yeah, my strengths are focus, achiever, maximizer, relator, and input, then you don't know it enough to really have it be a natural part of your life to be able to, like you said, filter your decisions through it and everything. So, it's a super simple first step of just like putting your strengths in front of you, write them on a sticky note. Put them in the middle of your monitor every day so that when you wake up, you have to move that out of the way and put it to the side and move it back every day. Or, I had them on my bathroom sink for years until we moved to New York City with 5 people in one bathroom and a very small sink. So we don't have them there anymore, but putting them in front of you seems so simple, but if you read them every day, you will start to naturally be thinking about, why am I so frustrated right now? What's being violated in my strengths? And how can I be leveraging my strengths more to get to the results that I long to get and really build the dream that I'm longing to get to.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So tell us now, we said this before, if you can't tell by now, like I very much recommend doing the strengths assessment. I wish I would have done it a lot earlier to help me make a lot of these decisions. So tell us how, obviously they can click below to get the assessment, but you're also giving them a bonus of something extra. To share with what else can they get when they order the Strengths Quest?
Yeah. So when you click the link below, you'll be led to a page where you'll get all the information on it. But basically it is the Strengths Finder assessment. So the Strengths Finder assessment comes through Gallup, and it's bundled together with a product that I have called Strengths Startup. And Strengths Startup is a 6-week email series that gives you each week insight into one of your top 5 strengths. So it's customized to you, like Anna, your first email would be about focus, and your second email the next week would be about achiever. And so it's helping us, like we said, it's kind of like a virtual sticky note, right? It's helping us remember, keep those things in front of us. And it gives you just some really fundamental, great insights into each one of those top 5 strengths over the first 5 weeks, and then kind of gives you some next steps in the last email. What can I do with this next? How is this really life changing for me in my work and my career? And what can I do with these things to help me get to where I want to be?
Awesome. I love it. And I'm in that right now. I'm excited to get the emails and it's a daily reminder. It's not something that you're ever, I feel like, done with, right? It's just like always continuing, especially now with my daughter too, like figuring out my strengths with her as a mom and like delegating what I'm not strong at so I can have that time too with her as well. So awesome. So do you have any last wisdom for us?
I think the thing that has been coming up over the last year or so in particular is people look at their strengths and they get them. And oftentimes people say, oh yeah, this sounds like me. This is great. And maybe just as often, which is kind of disheartening to me, people look at them and say, yep, that's me. And that's why I'm frustrated, or that's why I don't feel great about myself. But to know that each one of these strengths was developed by people who became successful using this strength, who were energized by using this strength, who impacted other people by using this strength. It is a strength. And no matter what your past story has been and how appreciated or not appreciated that strength has been, you are uniquely wired to do something that only you can do. And so using this as a tool to get to that place, it requires a positive outlook and to know and a confidence that these are things that you can use for good and to get to your dreams. And so don't be discouraged if you feel like frustrated by your results, but rather know that you have a unique role to play and a unique way to approach the work that you want to do, and you can go out and find it.
Awesome. I love that. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom and doing this coaching session.
I know. It's really fun.
Take on the world now. With my
That's right.
Achievement.
Yeah, you're going to go lock yourself in a closet and get something done. Is what
I know. Break. Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you for being here. Oh, and tell us where they can find out more about you too, like your website, your Facebook.
Oh, yeah. So you will click the link below to get access to the assessment and to Strengths Startup. But you can find me over at isogostrong.com. We have regular blogging and information over there, trying to really draw this back to everyday work and everyday life. I have a video podcast that you can find on iTunes. It's Isogo TV. You can find it there, as well as our closed Facebook group, which is actually called Energy Up, Frustration Down by Your Strengths. And so you can find me over there through ESO Go Strong or through that Facebook group as well. And I love helping people in this. So if you have questions about it, please hop over to that group and start asking questions as well.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. And I'll be in that group too. I think I have awesome. And we'll have all the links below too, so you guys can find her as well. So thank you for being here.
Okay.
Becky. This was fun.
Yeah, this was really great. Thanks. Bye.